All right, so this is 2.3. Let's solve the equation by factoring. So number 1 is 6x squared plus x minus 12. All right, so again, factoring, and then we'll solve it. So let's start with the basics, 3x and 2x. And how about 4 and 3? Okay, so we check the middle of these, that's 8, and the outside, that's 9. Can we get a positive 1 out of those? Yes, if 9 is positive and 8 is negative, we get a positive 1. So I got lucky in guessing this. So how do we get the positive 9? The 3 must be positive, and to get the negative 8, the 4 must be negative. And then also check the multiplication of those two. If they equal a negative 12, and they do, then you did it correctly. Now let's solve it. This means that 3x minus 4 is equal to 0, or 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. All right, so we add 4, and we get 3x equals 4. Divide by 3, x equals 4/3. We subtract 3, x equals negative 3. Divide by 2, x equals negative 3/2. And so that would be our answer. We just solved that equation. Let's do the next one. All right, number 3. 15x squared minus 6 equals negative 13x. So put everything on one side. 15x squared plus 13x plus, minus 6. Minus 6, yeah. All right, so again, I'm doing this just right off the bat, just like you. I'm just trying the same things I tell you. I'm going to use 3 and 2 here. And so the middle here is 15. The outside is 6. That isn't going to give me a positive 13. Okay, so now I'm going to switch the 3 and the 2. So put 2 here and the 3 there. This gives me 10, and that gives me 9. Again, that's not going to give me 13. So I'm going to switch to 1 and 6 now. So switch to 1 and 6. 1 and 6. That's 5. That's 18. I can get 13 out of that by taking negative 5 and 18. So how to get negative 5? The 1 is negative and the 6 is positive. And then again, you must check to make sure that that equals a negative, and it does. Now let's solve. 3x minus 1 equals 0, or 5x plus 6 equals 0. Add 1 and divide by 3. 1/3. Subtract 6 and divide by 5. That's negative 6 over 5. And those are our answers. Let's do the next one. All right, number 5 is 2x times 4x plus 15 equals 27. Simplify first. You get 8x squared plus 30x. Subtract the 27 to the other side. And there's your trinomial. Again, let's put these together. Let's use 4 and 2. And 3 and 9. All right, check the inside. That's 6. That's 36. Hey, I can get 30 out of that if I subtract 6. So put the negative on the 3 and the positive on the 9. And then again, check to make sure they multiply together to give us a negative 27. And they do. Now let's solve. 4x minus 3 equals 0. And 2x plus 9 equals 0. So I'm solving these for the first time. So you can see how quickly it works if you use the center numbers. But you do have to fiddle around with it sometimes. All right, add 3. Divide by 4. Subtract 9. Divide by 2. So those are your answers there. Let's do the next one. And this would be number 7. 75x squared plus 35x minus 10. They're trying to scare you with this one. So let's just use 3 and 25. So let's do 25 and 3. And let's use 5 and 2. So on the inside I get 15. The outside I get 50. And that will give me 35. So if we subtract 15 from a positive 50. So I totally got lucky on that. So the 50 has to be positive, and the 15 has to be negative. And again, I'm always checking that. Don't forget that. All right, so now let's solve. 25x minus 5 equals 0, and 3x plus 2 equals 0. Add 5. So divide by 25. Reduce. That's 1/5. Subtract 2. Divide by 3. And those are your answers. Next, number 9. Number 9 is 12x squared plus 60x plus 75 equals 0. And so now we go ahead and pick some values. I'm going to do 2x and 6x, and I'll do 5 and 15. 5 and 15, and then I check the center and the outside, and there's where I'm going to get my 60. So how do I get that? Everything's positive up here, so that just means everything's positive here. So now we solve. 2x plus 5 is equal to 0, and 6x plus 15 is equal to 0. So subtract the 5, divide by 2, negative 5 halves. Subtract the 15, and divide off the 6. You get negative 15 6, which is reducible by 3. It's a negative 5 halves. So look at that. They're the same. We'll talk about what that means at another time. Let's go on to the next page. All right, now we have something really ugly here. We got to get everything together. So it'd be nice if we knew what the common denominator was. If we factor out an x here, we get x plus 3, and that helps because we have an x plus 3 there and an x. So we're going to go ahead and take x over x plus 3 plus 1 over x minus 4 over 1 equals 9 over x and x plus 3. Okay, so we need to multiply the first one by an x that's missing. Okay, the second one by x plus 3 that's missing. And the 4 needs both of them, x and x plus 3. So we're going to leave it on top as x squared plus 3x. And then the 9 has everything, so we don't need to change that. So we get x squared plus x plus 3. And now don't forget to distribute the negative 4, negative 4x squared, and then a negative 12x. And that's all going to equal 9. Looks so much nicer, combine like terms. That's a negative 3x squared. We have a positive x and a negative 12x. That's a negative 11x. And the plus 3, we're going to subtract it to the other side. That's 6. So since the leading coefficient is negative here, I'm going to move everything to the right side. So 0 equals 3x squared plus 11x plus 6. All right, so now 3x and x. And let's use 2 and 3. 2 and 3. So 2x in the middle, 9x on the outside. That makes 11. They're both pluses, so there we go. So 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, or x plus 3 is equal to 0. Subtract the 2. Divide off the 3. Negative 2/3 is one of the answers, and x is equal to negative 3 is the other answer. All right, number 12. Let me clean this up here. Number 12 here. No, 13, sorry. 13. So 5x over x minus 3 and 4 over x plus 3 equals 90 over, that's the difference of squares, x minus 3x plus 3, which happens to be what these other two are. So we need an x plus 3 here, and we need an x minus 3 there, and the 90 already has the right denominator. So again, you don't need the denominators once they're all the same. So let's distribute the 5x through, and we get 5x squared plus 15x. Distribute the 4 through, and you get 4x minus 12, and that's 90. So combine like terms, there is no other square, so that's 5x squared. 15 and 4 is 19, and we're going to subtract 90 to the left here to put everything on the same side. That's negative 102 equals 0. Now we factor. 5 is easy, but the problem is we have 102. So 102 is, let's see, factorable by 3. Let's see, 102. We have 1 and 102. 3 goes into 3, so 1 plus 2 is 3. So 3 goes into 102. 3 times remainder of 1, 34. Again, we've got to put these in these positions to get 19. So 5 times 3 is 15. Yeah, we could do that. 34 here and 3 there. Obviously, you have the 2 I didn't put down here, but I knew that wasn't going to work. So notice the middle, we have 34, and the outside, we have 15. So if we do 34 minus 15, we get 19. So minus 15 and a positive 34 gives us a positive 19. Now we solve. 5x plus 34 equals 0. So 5x equals negative 34. X equals negative 34 over 5. And x also equals positive 3. All right, next page. Determine whether the two equations are equivalent. So the point here is, are these the same thing? And you say yes. We take the square root of both sides here. We get x equals plus or minus 4. Are they really the same thing? Okay. The x squared equals 16 is a parabola, okay, that goes through the x-axis at positive or negative 4. Okay, opens up and goes through here, right? So it goes something like that. X equals 4 is just this line right here, a vertical line. So it's only part of the problem. Does x equal 4 work? Yes, but you're missing the negative 4 here. Just something to think about for right now. As we go further, we will discuss whether or not you need the other piece. Okay. If x squared equals d, then x equals the square root of d, plus or minus the square root of d. Don't forget about those. So solve the equation. So on number 17, x squared equals 225. So your answer should be x equals plus or minus 15. Number 19, 25x squared equals 9. You take the square root of both sides, you get 5x equals plus or minus 3. All right. Divided by the 5, you get plus or minus 3/5. And let's get rid of those and do number 21. X minus 3 squared equals 17. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 17. X equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 17. And 23. 4 times x plus 7 squared equals 13. You could divide by 4 first if you wanted, and then take the square root, but we can take the square root of both sides and we still get the same thing. Plus or minus the square root of 13. Divide off the 2 now. X plus 7 equals plus or minus, square root of 13 over 2, and then subtract the 7. You get negative 7 plus or minus square root of 13 over 2. All right, let's go ahead and keep going. Okay, so let's complete the square here. Number 27, x squared plus 6x. We got to add the 4 to the other side. A is already 1, so we take b. And to complete it, it's b over 2 squared. So that's going to be 3. 6 over 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Add it to both sides. And now we rewrite the whole thing here and put x in that position plus, and then 6 over 2 is 3. b over 2 always goes in that position. All right, so now we take the square root, and we get x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 13. Subtract the 3. Negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 13. That's the answer for 27. Okay, now let's do number 29. Okay, 29. 4x squared minus 12x minus 11 equals 0. So let's divide everything by 4. Doesn't matter when we do it. Okay, so you get x squared minus 3x minus 11 fourths equals 0. 0 over 4 is 0. So let's move c over. X squared minus 3x equals 11 fourths. Now let's complete the square. Plus 3 over 2. It doesn't matter if it's negative because it's going to become positive. That's 9 over 4. So we're going to add 9 fourths to both sides. And now we have our typical setup. 11 plus 9 is 20. 20 over 4 is 5. So we have x and a minus and 3 over 2. b over 2 is where that is from, all right? And then we take the square root for both sides. So x minus 3 halves equals plus or minus the square root of 5. X equals positive 3 halves plus or minus the square root of 5. And that's your answer. Next. All right, the last set of problems here. Number 31, quadratic formula. So rule is we need to know what everything is on one side. So we move the 2 to the left side. And now A is 6, B is -1, and C is -2. So x equals negative b, which is +1, plus or minus square root, b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. All right? So the first thing I want to do is you should notice what the discriminant is. So that's going to be positive because the -2 and this -4 here are going to become positive. All right, so let's move on and say 1 plus or minus. So we have 1 minus, leave the minus sign out, that's +4 then, okay? So 4 times 6 is 24, 24 times a -2 is a -48. So 1 minus the -48 becomes 1 plus 48, all over 12. And in the square root here, that's 49. So we have 1 plus or minus 7 over 12. And you should write it like this. 1 plus 7 is 8. And 1 minus 7 is -6. And then reduce those. The first one reduces by 4, you get 2/3. The second one reduces by 3, or no, by 6, you get -1/2. All right, 33. X squared plus 6x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, everything is in the correct position, so A is 1, B is 6, and C is 3. It's important to know what each of these numbers are before you get into the problem. So x equals -b, so -6 plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. -6 plus or minus, what's under the radical? 4 times 1 times 3 is 12, so 36 minus 12, that's going to be the square root of 24, all over 2. So I'm just going to break down the 24, because we're not using our calculator here. That's going to be 4 and 6, 3 and 8, 2 and 12. Okay, so 4 and 6 are the right ones, because we can take the square root of 4 and get 2 square root of 6. So here's what you have. -6 plus or minus 2 square root of 6 all over 2. And now the 2 will go underneath both of those. And we'll have a -6 over 2 is, I'll just write it out first, plus or minus 2 square root of 6 over 2. All right, so we can simplify all that. That's -3 plus or minus the square root of 6. That should be your final answer. All right, 35. (2x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0). Everything's on one side, so A is 2, B is -3, and C is -4. Okay, so x equals -b, which would be +3, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. So 3 plus or minus, what's under our radical? 4 times 2 is 8, times a -4 is -32. So we have 9 minus -32, which becomes plus. So my point to you is, if you have a minus sign here and only one negative or an odd number of negatives here, then it's going to be positive underneath there. So you just got to watch for that stuff. Okay, so what do we really have? And then over 4. So the radical here is the square root of 41. So now you have x equals 3 plus or minus square root of 41 over 4. And that doesn't reduce. So the book might tell you that it's 3/4 plus or minus 1/4 of the square root of 41. Just be aware of that. I'll take either one. Let's do number 37. All right, number 37 is 3/2 z squared minus 4z minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so what we're going to do is A is 3/2, B is -4, and C is -1. All right, so I think we should do something differently here, and I'm going to show you after I'm done. So this is probably what you are doing at this moment. So x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a, times c, all over 2 times a. All right, so x equals 4 plus or minus the radical here. We have 16 minus. So you should notice that 4 and the 2 will reduce. 4 is over 2, that's 2. So 2 times 3 is 6, times negative 1 is negative 6. And the 2's in the denominator will reduce out to 1's and leaving just a 3. And under the radical here, we have the square root of 22. So x is equal to 4 plus or minus square root of 22 over 3. The square root of 22 doesn't simplify any further. All right, so I want to show you something here. If I can, no, I didn't want that. I'll just, hold on. Okay, look what happens when I multiply everything by 2. I'm going to multiply by 2 everything. Remember, you have to multiply every term. So those 2's reduce out. 3z squared minus 8z minus 2 equals 0. So a is 3, b is negative 8, and c is negative 2. Watch what happens. X equals negative b, which would be 8, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. So x equals 8 plus or minus. And under the radical, we have 64 minus 4 times 3 is 12 times negative 2 is negative 24, all over 6. So plus plus, under the radical, you have 88. So 88 reduces to 4 and 22, which is 2 square root of 22. So watch what happens here. X equals 8 plus or minus 2 square root of 22 over 6. So the 6 will reduce every term by 2. Okay, you could put the 6 underneath everything and reduce, or just realize that you can divide by 2 in every term. Okay, the top and the bottom. So that gives us a 4 plus or minus the square root of 22 all over 3, which is what we had in the last one. So you could have gotten rid of your fraction first. You still get the same answer. All right, let's move on. Number 39. Let's see here. Hello. All right, 39. 5 over w squared minus 10 over w plus 2 equals 0. All right, well, this is ridiculous. Let's multiply by a common denominator. Let's multiply by w squared. And you'll see what happens here. Those reduce out, leaving 5. One of these reduce with one of those, so that's minus 10w. And the 2 is just plus 2w squared equals 0, because 0 times anything is 0. So what do we have? We have 2w squared minus 10w plus 5. It's not minus 5. This is a positive 5. We're not moving it across the equal sign. So it stays plus 5. Now you have a equals 2, b equals negative 10, and c equals 5. Start using your skills of manipulation. Start catching on that I can change things as long as I follow the rules. All right, so let's see if we can do this quickly. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. So you should be pausing this and trying to do this without me. And 2 times 2. X equals 10 plus or minus 100 minus 40. 8 times 5 is 40, so that's 60 under the radical, all over 4. 60, let's see here, 15 times 4 is 60. So that's going to be 2 square root of 15. All right, so x equals 10 plus or minus 2 square root of 15 all over 4. So again, everything is divisible by 2. So that's the shortcut. So we have 5 plus or minus square root of 15 over 2. And that would be what your x's are, your x-intercepts. All right, let's go on to number 41. Getting closer. Number 41. 4x squared plus 81 equals 36x. So put everything on one side. 4x squared minus 36x plus 81 equals 0. Now, let's just start this just like what we've been doing. And C is 81. Some large numbers, but it's okay. Doesn't matter. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared. So now you need a calculator, and you got to figure out what 36 squared is. So 36 times 36 is 1,296 minus 4 times a times c. So let's figure out, all over 2 times a. Let's figure out the radical here. 16 times 81. That is 1,296. So it's going to be 0 in your radical. So what we really have is 36 over 8. Divided by 2, or reduce. Divided by 4, excuse me, you get 9 over 2. And just 9/2. So that means your vertex is on the x-axis. And now the last problem. 43. 3x over x squared plus 9 equals negative 2. All right, so we could cross multiply because it's really two fractions, or you could just multiply both sides by x squared plus 9. If we cross multiply, it'll give us the same thing. But remember, that's negative 2 times this whole group. So that's negative 2x squared minus 18 equals 3x. Let's move everything to the right side. 0 equals positive 2x squared plus 3x plus 18. And now you can do your quadratic formula. A equals 2, b equals 3, c equals 18. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Under the radical here, 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 18, it doesn't matter what it is. 8 times 18 is very large, larger than the 9. So you're going to get 9 minus a big number, so it's going to be negative under the radical, which you can't do. So this is a no solution. And that's the end of your assignment.